The small town of Umuahia had always been quiet, its people bound by tradition and simplicity. But everything changed when Prophetess Patricia arrived. No one knew exactly where she came from, only that she settled in an abandoned church at the heart of town. She introduced herself as Mama, See-It-All, a woman gifted with the power to see into the past, present, and future. Word spread quickly about her divine sight. At first, only a few curious villagers visited, testing her abilities with trivial questions. But when she revealed secrets no one else could have known, things whispered only in the dark. Fear and awe gripped the town. She told a desperate widow where to find her stolen jewelry, predicted a trader's fortune before it happened, and even foresaw the sudden death of a corrupt politician. People marveled at her accuracy, and soon, her name traveled beyond Umuahia. Miracles followed her footsteps, or so it seemed. The sick swore they were healed after she touched them. Barren women claimed they conceived after she anointed them. Prosperity seemed to follow those who gave generously to her ministry. The once empty church became a temple of wonders, overflowing with believers willing to part with their wealth in exchange for divine intervention. But behind the golden curtains of her shrine, beneath the mountain of offerings, and beyond the glow of her supposed holiness, something sinister lurked. The truth was far darker than anyone could imagine. The people of Umuahia worshipped at the feet of Mama, See-It-All. Her words carried the weight of the divine, and no one dared to question her prophecies. Every Sunday, her church overflowed with eager believers, desperate for a touch of her miraculous power. Women who had suffered miscarriages wept as she laid hands on their bellies. Merchants offered their first earnings in return for prosperity, and young men lined up for blessings before embarking on journeys. But Prophetess Patricia was no ordinary seer. In the secrecy of her candlelit chamber, she sat before a grand mirror framed in ancient wood, whispering incantations to something unseen. Her prophecies were not divine revelations but carefully crafted illusions, designed to keep the people under her control. The miraculous healings? A game of deception, her trusted inner circle planted among the congregation, pretending to be healed. The wealth she promised? Nothing but empty words that kept the people coming back, giving more, believing more. One night, as a storm raged outside, a young woman named Adiz, a devoted follower, crept toward the prophetess's chamber. She had heard whispers, rumors of unnatural happenings in the dead of night. As she pressed her ear to the heavy wooden door, she caught a glimpse of something through the narrow opening. Patricia was not alone. In the dim candlelight, shadows twisted unnaturally against the walls, and a voice, not hers, spoke in a guttural whisper. Adiz's heart pounded as she fled into the night, her mind reeling with what she had just witnessed. Was Mama, See-It-All, truly a messenger of God? Or was she something else entirely? Adiz could not sleep. The image of Prophetess Patricia's dark chamber haunted her thoughts. The voice she had heard was not human, yet it spoke in a tongue she could almost understand. Something ancient, something forbidden. The next morning, she hesitated before stepping into the church. The congregation bustled with life, singing praises, dancing, and testifying about miracles. No one suspected a thing. Her friend, Chica, noticed her unease. "You don't look well, Adiz," she whispered as they sat together. Adiz hesitated, then shook her head. I'm fine." She could not voice her suspicions, not yet. To speak against Mama, See-It-All, was to invite condemnation. Those who had dared to question her before had mysteriously disappeared, or worse, met strange misfortunes. Just then, Prophetess Patricia emerged from the inner sanctum, draped in flowing white robes, her arms adorned with golden bracelets that jingled as she moved. The congregation fell silent as she raised her hands, her eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. "The Lord has spoken to me," she announced. "There is a traitor among us." Gasps filled the air. Adiz's blood ran cold. Patricia's gaze swept across the room, pausing only briefly when it met Adiz's eyes. The young woman held her breath. She knew. And now, Adiz was in danger. Adiz's heart pounded in her chest. Prophetess Patricia's piercing gaze lingered on her for what felt like an eternity before sweeping over the rest of the congregation. The air was thick with tension. "My children," Patricia continued, her voice smooth but heavy with warning, "the Lord has revealed that the enemy is near. A wolf in sheep's clothing walks among us, doubting the power of the Almighty. But fear not, for the Lord's judgment is swift." The congregation erupted into fervent prayers, some weeping, others shouting in tongues. Adiz forced herself to join in, keeping her head bowed, though her mind raced. Did Patricia truly know? Or was she merely casting a wide net, waiting for fear to betray the guilty? As the service ended, Adiz hurried toward the exit, but a firm grip on her wrist stopped her. She turned to see one of Patricia's trusted aides, Brother Tobias, his face unreadable. "Mama wants to see you," he said quietly. Adiz swallowed hard. There was no refusing. She followed him past the bustling crowd into a dimly lit corridor leading to the prophetess's private chamber. Inside, incense burned in the corners, and strange symbols were carved into the wooden walls. Patricia sat on a cushioned chair, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "My daughter," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes, "why do you fear me?" Adiz's palms were sweaty. I do not fear you, Mama." Patricia tilted her head. "Then why do you tremble?" Adiz knew she was walking on thin ice. One wrong word, and she would vanish like the others. The chamber was eerily silent except for the faint crackling of the burning incense. Patricia studied Adiz, her fingers tapping lightly against the golden rings on her lap. "You are troubled," she said, her voice almost hypnotic. "Tell me, my child, what burdens your heart?" Adiz struggled to keep her voice steady. "It is nothing, Mama. I am only overwhelmed by the greatness of your works." Patricia's lips curled into a smile. "Is that so?" She leaned forward slightly. "Then why did I see fear in your eyes during today's service?" Adiz's breath hitched. Did she know what Adiz had witnessed? Or was she testing her? Patricia exhaled dramatically. "I understand, my child. Faith can be difficult. Doubt is a disease that the enemy plants in our hearts. But doubt leads to destruction." She paused, then added, "You do not want to be destroyed, do you?" The weight of the words settled over Adiz like a noose tightening around her neck. "No, Mama." "Good." Patricia's expression darkened. "Because those who betray the Lord's chosen do not live to tell their tale." Adiz felt the blood drain from her face. It was a warning. A direct one. Patricia suddenly smiled again, clapping her hands. "Go, my daughter. The Lord is with you." Adiz forced a smile and bowed before leaving the chamber. But as she stepped into the cool night air, her legs nearly gave out beneath her. She had to get out of this place before it was too late. Adiz barely slept that night. Every shadow in her small room seemed to move, and every creak of the wooden floor made her heart race. She was marked. Patricia knew she had doubts. She had seen what she was not meant to see. And now, the only thing left was silence, or escape. By dawn, she had made up her mind. She needed to leave Umuahia. But leaving was not so simple. Mama, see it all, had eyes everywhere. Her loyal followers, her enforcers, even the local police, who had been generously blessed by her wealth. Adiz needed help. She thought of Chica. Her friend had always been skeptical of Patricia's miracles, but she had never voiced her suspicions out loud. If anyone could help her, it was Chica. She hurried through the village, her heart hammering. She found Chica fetching water from the stream, her expression immediately shifting to concern at the sight of Adiz's anxious face. "What's wrong?" Chica asked, setting her bucket down. "We need to talk," Adiz whispered. "Somewhere private." They moved deeper into the woods, away from listening ears. Adiz took a deep breath and told Chica everything, about the strange voice in Patricia's chamber, the threats, and her growing fear. Chica listened intently, then exhaled sharply. "I knew something wasn't right about that woman," she muttered. "I've heard stories, Adiz. Stories of people who questioned her and never returned." Adiz shuddered. "I have to leave before it's too late." Chica nodded. "Then we must be careful. If Mama suspects you're trying to escape, you won't make it out alive." Adiz and Chica knew that escaping Umuahia would not be easy. Prophetess Patricia had powerful allies, and her most devoted followers would do anything to protect her name. The moment Adiz tried to leave, they would know. For the rest of the day, Adiz tried to act normal. She attended the evening prayers at the church, clapping and singing along with the others. But every time she glanced over her shoulder, she felt eyes on her. Brother Tobias stood near the entrance, watching. Sister Ifyananya, one of Patricia's closest aides, never strayed far from her side. Even some villagers who once greeted her warmly now seemed distant, their eyes cold and suspicious. Mama, see it all, had already spread her warning. As night fell, Adiz and Chika met in secret behind the village marketplace. "We must be smart," Chika whispered. "There's a bus leaving for Enugu tomorrow morning. If you can make it there, you'll be safe." Adiz bit her lip. "And what about you?" Chika gave a sad smile. "I'll stay. If we both disappear, they will know something is wrong. But don't worry, I'll cover for you." Tears welled in Adiz's eyes, but she nodded. They embraced, knowing this could be the last time they saw each other. But unknown to them, a shadow moved nearby, lurking in the darkness. Someone had been listening. By the time Adiz returned home, a sense of dread settled in her chest. She had to leave. And she had to do it fast. Because now, she wasn't just trying to escape. She was being hunted. Adiz barely slept, her ears attuned to every sound outside her window. The wind howled through the trees, but there was something else, a presence, an uneasiness that made her stomach twist. By dawn, she packed what little she could into a small cloth bag and wrapped a shawl over her head. The plan was simple. Blend in with the early morning traders heading to the market, slip away, and board the bus to Enugu. She stepped out into the cool morning air, her heart pounding. The village was waking up, women setting up their stalls, children running barefoot along the dusty paths. Adiz kept her head low and moved quickly toward the main road. But just as she reached the bus station, a hand clamped around her wrist. She turned sharply. Brother Tobias. His grip was firm, his expression unreadable. "Where are you going, Adiz?" he asked, his voice calm but filled with an unspoken warning. Adiz forced a shaky smile. I'm visiting my aunt in Enugu." Brother Tobias's eyes bore into hers, searching for the truth. Then he smiled. "Mama would like to see you first." A chill ran down Adiz's spine. She knew then that she had walked straight into a trap. Terror gripped Adiz as Brother Tobias led her back to the church. She knew there was no escape now. The moment she stepped into Mama See-It-All's chamber, the heavy wooden door closed behind her with an ominous thud. Patricia sat on her cushioned throne, draped in golden robes, her fingers adorned with rings that glowed under the dim candlelight. The air smelled of incense and something else, something rotten. "My daughter," Patricia said, her voice unervingly sweet. "Why do you seek to leave the place of your blessings?" Adiz swallowed hard. "Mama, I just wanted to see my family." Patricia's smile didn't waver, but her eyes darkened. Lies. The room grew colder. Shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls, and then Adiz saw it. Movement behind Patricia's chair. A figure, barely human, crouched in the darkness. Its eyes gleamed red, and its breath came in slow, guttural rasps. Adiz felt her knees weaken. The thing was real. The voice she had heard that night. It wasn't her imagination. Patricia leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saw something, didn't you?" Adiz couldn't speak. Patricia's fingers tapped against her golden rings. "Do you know what happens to those who see what they shouldn't?" The creature behind her shifted, its long fingers stretching toward Adiz. And for the first time, she knew Mama See-It-All wasn't just a false prophet. She was something much worse. Adiz's breath came in short gasps as the monstrous figure behind Patricia moved closer. Its eyes glowed like embers in the dim candlelight, and its body, though humanoid, was twisted in unnatural ways. Long, bony fingers stretched toward her, and a wave of icy terror gripped her heart. Patricia, however, remained calm, her smile never fading. "You see, my daughter, the power I have is not ordinary." Her voice was laced with an eerie sweetness. "It is a gift from beyond." Adiz took a shaky step backward, but the heavy wooden door behind her was locked. There was no way out. Patricia continued, rising slowly from her throne. This world does not reward the weak, Adiz. I was once like you, ordinary, powerless, unseen. But I chose a different path. And now, the people worship me. They give me their wealth, their loyalty, their lives. She gestured around the chamber, her golden rings catching the candlelight. All of this, because of him. She turned slightly, and for the first time, Adiz saw something carved into the wooden floor, an ancient symbol, drawn in what looked like dried blood. The creature behind Patricia let out a slow, rasping breath. Adiz trembled. You made a pact. Patricia smiled, her eyes gleaming with something dark and terrible. Yes, my dear. A covenant sealed in blood. And now, I offer you the same chance. Adiz's stomach twisted. What? Patricia took a step closer, lowering her voice. Join me, Adiz. Accept the power. Become my heir, and you will never have to fear again. The creature's fingers hovered just inches from Adiz's face, waiting. The choice was hers. Adiz's body shook as Patricia's words sank in. Become her heir. Accept the same dark power that had turned the prophetess into a feared and worshipped figure? The thought made her stomach churn. She forced herself to meet Patricia's gaze. And what happens if I refuse? Patricia's smile thinned. Refusal has consequences. The air in the room became heavy, pressing against Adiz's chest like an invisible hand. The creature behind Patricia let out a low, rumbling growl. Adiz clenched her fists. She knew the truth now. This wasn't a church, it was a prison. And the people who worshipped Mama, see it all, were nothing but sacrifices to whatever dark force she had made a pact with. Her mind raced. If she agreed, she might buy herself time. If she refused, she wouldn't make it out of this room alive. She took a slow breath and lowered her gaze. I need time to think. Patricia studied her, then nodded. Of course, my child. This is not a decision to be made in haste. She stepped back, raising a hand toward the door. Go now and pray. But do not take too long. The heavy wooden door creaked open, and Adiz wasted no time stepping through it. As she walked down the dimly lit corridor, she could feel Patricia's eyes on her back, burning into her like a brand. She had bought herself time. But she knew one thing for certain. If she didn't escape soon, she would never leave at all. The moment Adiz stepped out of the church, the fresh night air hit her like a wave of relief. But she wasn't safe yet. She hurried toward the village, her mind racing with everything she had just witnessed. She had to tell Chica. Rushing through the narrow paths, she reached Chica's home and knocked frantically. It took a moment, but Chica finally opened the door, her eyes widening at Adiz's expression. Adiz. What happened? Adiz stepped inside, her hands trembling. Chica, you were right. Mama, see it all, is not who we think she is. She took a deep breath and recounted everything. The creature, the dark pact, the terrifying choice Patricia had given her. Chica's face turned pale. We have to leave. Now. Adiz nodded, but deep down, she knew it wouldn't be that easy. She's watching me, Chica. Her people, they're everywhere. Chica's jaw tightened. Then we'll have to be careful. But before Adiz could respond, a loud knock sounded at the door. Both women froze. A deep voice called from outside. The prophetess requests Adiz's presence. Now. Their time had just run out. Chica and Adiz exchanged panicked glances. They couldn't open the door. If they did, Adiz would never return. Chica's mind worked quickly. There's a back window, she whispered. Without wasting a second, Adiz followed her through the small house. Chica pushed open the wooden shutters, revealing the dark alley behind the house. Adiz squeezed through just as the knocking at the front door grew louder, more urgent. As she landed outside, she turned back to Chica. Come with me. Chica hesitated. No. If I disappear too, they'll know. I'll stall them. Adiz's eyes filled with fear. Chica. Go. Adiz swallowed the lump in her throat and ran. She weaved through the narrow paths, her heart racing. The bus to Enugu left in a few hours. She had to reach it before Patricia's people realized she was gone. But as she approached the village outskirts, a figure stepped into her path. Brother Tobias. His expression was calm, but his eyes held something sinister. "You're making a mistake, Adiz." Adiz's breath hitched. She had run straight into a trap. Adiz's heart pounded as she stared at Brother Tobias, who blocked the only path leading out of the village. The dim moonlight revealed the cold amusement in his eyes, as if he had expected this all along. "You can't run from Mama," he said calmly, stepping forward. "She sees everything." Adiz took a step back, glancing around for an escape route. The village was eerily silent, as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for what would happen next. "I don't belong here," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just want to leave." Brother Tobias let out a slow chuckle. "Leave?" His head tilted slightly. "Mama gave you a gift, an opportunity, and you want to throw it away." Adiz clenched her fists. "It's not a gift. It's a curse." Tobias's expression darkened. "Then I have no choice." Before she could react, he lunged at her. Adiz turned and ran. She dashed through the narrow village paths, her bare feet kicking up dust as she pushed herself forward. Behind her, Tobias followed, his heavy footsteps echoing in the night. She ran past the market stalls, past the silent houses, toward the only road leading out of the village. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop. If she slowed down, even for a second, it would be over. But just as she thought she had lost him, two more figures emerged from the shadows ahead. Sister Ifeanyi and another of Patricia's devoted followers. She was surrounded, and there was nowhere left to run. Adiz came to a skidding halt, her chest heaving. The three figures closed in, their faces calm but their eyes filled with unspoken menace. "You were warned, Adiz," Sister Ifeanyi said, shaking her head. "Mama does not take betrayal lightly." Adiz's pulse thundered in her ears. She could fight, but she was outnumbered. She could scream, but no one in this village would help her. Not against Mama, see it all. Instead, she did the only thing she could. She dropped to her knees. I was afraid," she stammered, forcing tears into her voice. "I doubted, but now I see the truth. Mama is the only way. Please, let me go back to her." Brother Tobias narrowed his eyes. "You expect us to believe that?" Adiz lowered her gaze. "She is the chosen one. I was blind, but now I see." The three exchanged glances. Then, after what felt like an eternity, Sister Ifeanyi nodded. "Take her back." Tobias grabbed Adiz's arm and yanked her to her feet. As they led her back through the dark paths of the village, she kept her head down, hiding the fury in her eyes. They thought they had won, but Adiz wasn't giving up. She would escape. And this time, she wouldn't run alone. The moment they reached the church, Adiz was shoved into a locked room at the back of the compound. It was small, barely enough space to stretch her legs. A dim lantern flickered in the corner, casting long shadows on the cracked walls. She listened carefully as Brother Tobias and Sister Ifeanyi spoke outside the door. "She will see Mama in the morning," Ifeanyi said. "She won't be a problem anymore." Their footsteps faded, and the room fell silent. Adiz exhaled shakily. She had one night, one chance. Slowly, she examined the room. The only exit was the door, but the wooden window was old and fragile. If she could break through it without making too much noise. She stepped onto a wooden stool and pressed against the window frame. It wobbled slightly. Hope surged in her chest. She worked quickly, using her fingers to pry at the edges. The wood splintered under her touch. Then, snap! The frame came loose. She barely had time to celebrate when she heard footsteps approaching. Someone was coming. She had to move. Now. Adiz's heart pounded as she heard the approaching footsteps outside the locked door. She had only seconds to act. Clutching the loose wooden frame, she pushed harder, forcing the window open just enough for her to slip through. The moment she squeezed out, she dropped to the ground outside, landing softly in the darkness behind the church. The night air was thick and humid, clinging to her skin as she crouched low, listening. The door to her prison creaked open. "She's gone!" a voice shouted. Shouts erupted from inside. The search had begun. Adiz wasted no time. She bolted toward the back of the compound, sticking to the shadows. She knew the church grounds well. If she could reach the old fence at the far end, she might have a chance. Her bare feet barely made a sound as she ran past the churchyard, past the small shrine where Patricia's followers often prayed. The whispers of the night creatures filled the silence, but behind her, she could hear the chaos unfolding. "Find her!" Brother Tobias roared. She couldn't have gone far. Adiz's pulse pounded. She reached the wooden fence and climbed up, her hands scrambling for a hold. Just as she swung her leg over, she heard the sound of footsteps closing in. "There she is!" A hand grabbed her ankle. Adiz kicked hard, twisting her body. The force sent her captor stumbling back, and she wasted no time jumping to the other side. She hit the ground running. The village was ahead. The road out of Umuahia was within reach. But she wasn't safe yet. They were coming for her. Adiz ran as fast as her legs could carry her, her lungs burning with every breath. Behind her, she could hear them. Shouts, footsteps, the desperate calls of Patricia's followers spreading the alarm. She had to reach the bus stop. The dirt roads of Umuahia stretched ahead, empty under the pale moonlight. Most of the villagers were asleep, unaware of the hunt unfolding in the night. She clutched the fabric of her dress and forced herself to move faster. She reached the market square and spotted the small bus station at the edge of the village. A single bus was parked there, its engine humming softly. The driver, an older man with tired eyes, stood outside, smoking a cigarette. Adiz stumbled toward him. "Please, when does the bus leave?" she gasped. The man looked her up and down, frowning at her disheveled state. 5 minutes. You traveling alone?" Before she could answer, she heard voices growing louder. They were close. Adiz's hands trembled as she reached into the pocket of her dress. She had no money, no way to pay for a ticket. But she had to leave. Please, I'll pay you later," she begged. "Just let me on." The driver hesitated, his gaze flickering past her. Adiz turned and saw them, Brother Tobias and 2 other men running toward the station. "Please," she whispered desperately. The driver sighed. "Get in." Relief flooded her as she scrambled onto the bus. The door shut behind her just as Tobias reached it, slamming his fist against the metal. "Adiz!" he shouted. "Come out now." But the bus was already pulling away. She watched as the village of Umuahia grew smaller in the distance, Tobias's furious face disappearing into the night. For the first time in a long time, she could breathe. She was free. Or so she thought. The bus rumbled through the countryside, the dark silhouette of trees passing like silent sentinels in the night. Adiz sat near the window, her body still trembling from the escape. She had done it. She had left Umuahia behind. But something gnawed at her, a feeling she couldn't shake. She glanced at the other passengers, most of them either asleep or lost in thought. The driver focused on the road, his hands steady on the wheel. Everything seemed normal. Yet, deep down she felt watched. The air inside the bus was stifling. She shifted uncomfortably and turned back to the window. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. Wide eyes, sweat on her forehead, a face filled with exhaustion. Then, for a brief moment, something moved in the reflection. A shadow. Adiz's breath caught. She whipped her head around, scanning the bus. Nothing. She shook her head. Maybe she was just paranoid. After everything she had been through, it made sense to be on edge. But then the lights inside the bus flickered, and a slow, rasping breath echoed from the back. Adiz's stomach twisted. She wasn't alone. Something had followed her. Adiz's hands gripped the seat in front of her as a deep, unnatural chill settled in the bus. She turned slowly, scanning the dimly lit aisle. Most of the passengers were asleep, their heads bobbing with the movement of the bus. But at the very back, near the shadows, a figure sat completely still. She couldn't see its face. The lights flickered again, and for a brief second, Adiz saw it, eyes glowing red, fingers too long, its body shrouded in darkness. Her blood ran cold. It was here. She turned back quickly, her breaths coming in sharp gasps. It didn't make sense. She had escaped. She had left everything behind. How was it still following her? She forced herself to stay calm. If she panicked, the other passengers would notice. And what could she even tell them? That a demon from a false prophetess was hunting her? No one would believe her. The bus jolted over a pothole, making her stomach lurch. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer under her breath. But when she opened them again, her reflection in the window had changed. It was no longer her face staring back. It was Patricia's, smiling and whispering, "You cannot run from me." Adiz choked on a scream. The nightmare wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Adiz slapped a hand over her mouth, muffling the scream that threatened to escape. Her body trembled as she turned away from the window, heart hammering. The reflection was gone, but the weight of Patricia's whispered words still clung to the air. She forced herself to breathe, her mind racing. This wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something real. Patricia had done something to her. The prophetess had cursed her. Adiz's hands clenched into fists. No. She wouldn't let Mama see it all win. She turned to the driver, her voice hoarse. "Please, can you go faster?" The driver gave her a suspicious glance but nodded. The engine roared as the bus picked up speed. Adiz forced herself to relax, sinking into the seat. The other passengers remained asleep, unaware of the danger that lurked. Or so she thought. A woman sitting across from her stirred. Slowly, the woman turned her head, her face half hidden in shadows. Her lips parted, and in a voice that wasn't her own, she whispered, "You will return to me." Adiz's stomach twisted. The voice was Patricia's. The woman's eyes rolled back, her body convulsing for a brief moment before she slumped forward, breathing heavily as if nothing had happened. Adiz's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't just being followed. Mama, see it all, had found a way inside the minds of those around her. And she wasn't going to let Adiz go so easily. The bus screeched to a stop at a small town just before dawn. The passengers stirred, groaning as they grabbed their bags and stepped off into the early morning mist. Adiz hesitated. She wanted to keep going, to get as far away as possible. But she needed answers. She needed help. She stepped off the bus, hugging her arms as the cold air wrapped around her. The town was quiet, its streets still empty. A few market women were setting up stalls, their voices low as they arranged fresh produce. She approached an elderly woman sitting by a fire, roasting plantains. The woman looked up, her eyes sharp despite her age. "You look troubled, child," she said. "Where are you coming from?" Adiz hesitated. Should she tell the truth? She swallowed hard. I came from Umuahia." The woman's expression darkened. She said knowingly. "You are running from her, aren't you?" Adiz's breath hitched. "You know about Patricia?" The woman nodded, throwing a glance over her shoulder as if afraid someone might hear. "She is not a prophetess," the woman whispered. "She deals in something darker." Adiz leaned in. "How do I stop her?" The old woman's face tightened. "To break her hold on you, you must return." Adiz recoiled. "Return?" The woman nodded gravely. "You must face her. Otherwise, she will haunt you forever." Adiz's stomach churned. She had spent so much effort escaping. Now, she was being told she had to go back. The woman led Adiz to a small hut at the edge of the town. Inside, the air smelled of herbs and burning incense. Various charms and carved symbols hung from the walls, their eerie presence making Adiz uneasy. "You carry her mark," the woman said, inspecting Adiz carefully. "She bound you to her spirit, which is why you still feel her presence." Adiz rubbed her arms, feeling a chill crawl over her skin. "How do I break it?" The woman sighed. "It is not simple. Patricia's power does not come from God. She made sacrifices, dark sacrifices, to gain her sight. Adi's heart clenched. Sacrifices. The woman nodded. Many who follow her do not realize the truth. She feeds on their faith, their energy, and sometimes, their very souls. Adiz swallowed the lump in her throat. So what do I do? The woman stirred a bowl of thick, dark liquid. To sever the bond, you must return to where it all began. To her shrine. There, you will find the source of her power. Adiz shivered. She had seen the shrine before, the dark, candlelit room where Patricia conducted her private prayers. It was a place of fear, a place of secrets. And now, she had to go back. The old woman handed her a small pouch filled with crushed herbs. This will protect you for a short time. But be warned, she will know you are coming. Adiz took a shaky breath. She had no choice. If she wanted to be free, she had to face Patricia one last time. Adiz's journey back to Umuahia was nothing like her escape. Every mile felt heavier, the weight of what she was about to do pressing against her chest. As the town came into view, a cold dread settled in her stomach. The streets looked the same, quiet, ordinary, but now she knew the truth lurking beneath. She pulled the hood of her cloak lower over her face and moved carefully, avoiding the main roads. She couldn't risk being seen. She made her way toward the church compound, keeping to the shadows. The shrine was hidden deep within the church, beyond the public prayer halls, accessible only through a narrow corridor behind Patricia's quarters. She paused outside the entrance, her heart hammering. This was it. She slipped inside. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense and something else, something foul. The dim candlelight flickered along the walls, revealing strange symbols drawn in deep red. Adiz clenched her fists. She had to find the source of Patricia's power. But before she could take another step, a voice echoed through the chamber. You have returned to me, Adiz. The hairs on her arms stood up. She turned slowly. And there, standing in the doorway, was Patricia. Smiling. Waiting. Adiz's body stiffened as Patricia stepped closer, her flowing white robe glowing eerily in the candlelight. You ran, Patricia said, her voice laced with amusement. But you could never escape me. Adiz swallowed her fear, gripping the pouch of herbs tightly. You lied to them, she said, forcing strength into her voice. You are no prophetess. Patricia chuckled. Oh, my dear child. Do you think the people want the truth? They need hope. They need miracles. Her eyes darkened. And I give them what they desire. Adiz's hands trembled. You take from them. You feed on them. Patricia's smile widened. And yet, they worship me. The room seemed to shrink as Patricia raised her hands. Shadows crawled along the walls, moving unnaturally. A deep, guttural whisper filled the air. Adiz's pulse pounded. She had come too far to fail now. Gripping the pouch tightly, she threw the herbs into the air. The candles flickered violently. The whispers turned into screams. Patricia's eyes widened in shock. No! She shrieked. The ground trembled. The shrine walls cracked. The air became thick with something dark, something suffocating. Adiz fell to her knees, gasping for breath. The room spun. And then, with a final, ear-splitting wail, Patricia collapsed. The shadows recoiled. The whispers faded. It was over. Or so Adiz thought. But as the dust settled, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Patricia's body was gone. Only the echoes of her laughter remained. To be continued. The shrine fell silent. The walls, once vibrating with unnatural whispers, now stood still. The heavy scent of burning incense had vanished, leaving only the lingering echo of Patricia's laughter. Adiz's breath came in ragged gasps as she scanned the room. Patricia's body was gone. There was no trace of her. No footprints. No blood. Nothing. She staggered back, her heart pounding. Had she really defeated her? Or was this another trick? A sudden gust of wind rushed through the chamber, blowing out the candles. The room plunged into darkness. Adiz's fingers fumbled for the pouch of protective herbs, but her hands were shaking too much to grasp it properly. Then, A whisper slithered through the shadows. "You think you have won?" Adi's blood ran cold. The voice came from everywhere. From nowhere. From inside her very soul. "I do not die, child. I become something greater." A soft, eerie chuckle echoed in the chamber. Adiz stumbled back toward the door. She had to get out. Now. As she reached for the handle, something icy brushed against her skin. She gasped, spinning around. A shadow loomed before her, shifting, twisting. It had no solid form, just darkness, swirling like thick smoke. And then, two glowing red eyes opened within it. Patricia was no longer human. She had become something else. Something much worse. Adiz bolted from the shrine, her legs carrying her through the dark corridors of the church. Behind her, the whispers followed, slithering along the walls like living things. She burst out into the cold night, gulping in fresh air. But her relief was short-lived. The churchyard, once familiar, now felt different. Darker. The ground seemed to shift beneath her feet. The stars above flickered strangely. The entire village felt altered. Adiz clutched her arms, trying to steady herself. What had she done? She thought destroying the shrine would break Patricia's power, but instead, she had unleashed something worse. From the shadows, movement caught her eye. A group of villagers stood at the edge of the compound, their eyes vacant, their lips moving in silent prayer. Then, as one, they turned to her. "Mama see it all, lives in us." Their voices layered together, eerily calm. Adiz took a step back, her stomach twisting. Patricia hadn't just vanished. She had become part of them. Adiz spun on her heels and ran. The villagers' chanting grew louder, their voices echoing through the night as they advanced toward her. Their movements were slow but unnatural, their eyes glazed over as if they were in a trance. She dashed through the narrow streets, her mind racing. Where could she go? Who would help her? She spotted the road leading out of Umuahia, the same road she had taken to escape before. But as she neared it, a thick mist began to rise from the ground, curling like fingers, blocking her path. She skidded to a stop. Laughter echoed from the mist. Patricia's laughter. "You cannot leave me again, Adiz." Adiz gritted her teeth. "No," she whispered. "You don't own me." The mist thickened, pressing in. The villagers were closing in from behind. She had only one option left. She turned and sprinted toward the church bell tower, the highest point in the village. If she could reach it, maybe she could find a way to break the curse once and for all. She climbed the steps two at a time, her legs burning. The wind howled as she reached the top. Below, the village seemed frozen in time. She grabbed the thick rope of the bell. And with all her strength, she rang it. The loud, deafening clang split through the night like thunder. The villagers let out a collective scream, clutching their heads. The mist recoiled, thinning. Patricia's laughter turned into a shriek of rage. Adiz rang the bell again. And again. And with each echoing chime, the spell over the village cracked. The mist began to dissipate. The villagers collapsed, their bodies limp as if waking from a terrible nightmare. Adiz clutched the rope, her heart pounding. Had she done it? Had she finally broken the curse? The silence that followed was deafening. As dawn broke over Umuahia, Adiz slowly climbed down from the bell tower. The village was eerily quiet, the people stirring as if waking from a deep sleep. Brother Tobias lay near the church steps, groaning as he sat up. His eyes, once filled with blind devotion, now held only confusion. "What happened?" he murmured. Adiz swallowed hard. "Patricia is gone," she said. "For real this time." Tobias's face darkened. She was never a true prophetess, was she? Adiz shook her head. No. She used people. Controlled them. And in the end, she became something unnatural. A heavy silence settled between them. The villagers began to rise, dazed but seemingly free from Patricia's influence. Mothers clutched their children. Husbands held their wives. For the first time in years, Umuahia was truly awake. The nightmare was over. Or so they thought. Because as the sun rose, Adiz turned to look at the bell tower. And there, in the shadows, she swore she saw a figure standing. Watching. Waiting. Adiz's body stiffened as Patricia stepped closer, her flowing white robe glowing eerily in the candlelight. "You ran," Patricia said, her voice laced with amusement. "But you could never escape me." Adiz swallowed her fear, gripping the pouch of herbs tightly. "You lied to them," she said, forcing strength into her voice. "You are no prophetess." Patricia chuckled. "Oh, my dear child. Do you think the people want the truth? They need hope. They need miracles." Her eyes darkened. "And I give them what they desire." Adiz's hands trembled. "You take from them. You feed on them." Patricia's smile widened. "And yet, they worship me." The room seemed to shrink as Patricia raised her hands. Shadows crawled along the walls, moving unnaturally. A deep, guttural whisper filled the air. Adiz's pulse pounded. She had come too far to fail now. Gripping the pouch tightly, she threw the herbs into the air. The candles flickered violently. The whispers turned into screams. Patricia's eyes widened in shock. "No!" she shrieked. The ground trembled. The shrine walls cracked. The air became thick with something dark, something suffocating. Adiz fell to her knees, gasping for breath. The room spun. And then, with a final, ear-splitting wail, Patricia collapsed. The shadows recoiled. The whispers faded. It was over. Or so Adiz thought. But as the dust settled, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Patricia's body was gone. Only the echoes of her laughter remained. To be continued. The shrine fell silent. The walls, once vibrating with unnatural whispers, now stood still. The heavy scent of burning incense had vanished, leaving only the lingering echo of Patricia's laughter. Adiz's breath came in ragged gasps as she scanned the room. Patricia's body was gone. There was no trace of her. No footprints. No blood. Nothing. She staggered back, her heart pounding. Had she really defeated her? Or was this another trick? A sudden gust of wind rushed through the chamber, blowing out the candles. The room plunged into darkness. Adiz's fingers fumbled for the pouch of protective herbs, but her hands were shaking too much to grasp it properly. Then, a whisper slithered through the shadows. "You think you have won?" Adiz's blood ran cold. The voice came from everywhere. From nowhere. From inside her very soul. "I do not die, child. I become something greater." A soft, eerie chuckle echoed in the chamber. Adiz stumbled back toward the door. She had to get out. Now. As she reached for the handle, something icy brushed against her skin. She gasped, spinning around. A shadow loomed before her, shifting, twisting. It had no solid form, just darkness, swirling like thick smoke. And then, two glowing red eyes opened within it. Patricia was no longer human. She had become something else. Something much worse. Adiz bolted from the shrine, her legs carrying her through the dark corridors of the church. Behind her, the whispers followed, slithering along the walls like living things. She burst out into the cold night, gulping in fresh air. But her relief was short-lived. The churchyard, once familiar, now felt different. Darker. The ground seemed to shift beneath her feet. The stars above flickered strangely. The entire village felt altered. Adiz clutched her arms, trying to steady herself. What had she done? She thought destroying the shrine would break Patricia's power, but instead, she had unleashed something worse. From the shadows, movement caught her eye. A group of villagers stood at the edge of the compound, their eyes vacant, their lips moving in silent prayer. Then, as one, they turned to her. "Mama see it all, lives in us." Their voices layered together, eerily calm. Adiz took a step back, her stomach twisting. Patricia hadn't just vanished. She had become part of them. Adiz spun on her heels and ran. The villagers' chanting grew louder, their voices echoing through the night as they advanced toward her. Their movements were slow but unnatural, their eyes glazed over as if they were in a trance. She dashed through the narrow streets, her mind racing. Where could she go? Who would help her? She spotted the road leading out of Umuahia, the same road she had taken to escape before. But as she neared it, a thick mist began to rise from the ground, curling like fingers, blocking her path. She skidded to a stop. Laughter echoed from the mist. Patricia's laughter. "You cannot leave me again, Adiz." Adiz gritted her teeth. "No," she whispered. "You don't own me." The mist thickened, pressing in. The villagers were closing in from behind. She had only one option left. She turned and sprinted toward the church bell tower, the highest point in the village. If she could reach it, maybe she could find a way to break the curse once and for all. She climbed the steps 2 at a time, her legs burning. The wind howled as she reached the top. Below, the village seemed frozen in time. She grabbed the thick rope of the bell, and with all her strength, she rang it. The loud, deafening clang split through the night like thunder. The villagers let out a collective scream, clutching their heads. The mist recoiled, thinning. Patricia's laughter turned into a shriek of rage. Adiz rang the bell again, and with each echoing chime, the spell over the village cracked. The mist began to dissipate. The villagers collapsed, their bodies limp as if waking from a terrible nightmare. Adiz clutched the rope, her heart pounding. Had she done it? Had she finally broken the curse? The silence that followed was deafening. As dawn broke over Umuahia, Adiz slowly climbed down from the bell tower. The village was eerily quiet, the people stirring as if waking from a deep sleep. Brother Tobias lay near the church steps, groaning as he sat up. His eyes, once filled with blind devotion, now held only confusion. "What happened?" he murmured. Adiz swallowed hard. "Patricia is gone," she said. "For real this time." Tobias's face darkened. "She was never a true prophetess, was she?" Adiz shook her head. "No. She used people, controlled them, and in the end, she became something unnatural." A heavy silence settled between them. The villagers began to rise, dazed but seemingly free from Patricia's influence. Mothers clutched their children. Husbands held their wives. For the first time in years, Umuahia was truly awake. The nightmare was over, or so they thought, because as the sun rose, Adiz turned to look at the bell tower. And there, in the shadows, she swore she saw a figure standing, watching, waiting. Days passed, and Umuahia slowly returned to normal. The church was abandoned, its doors shut, the once golden banners of Mama, see it all, now faded and torn. Adiz stayed for a while, helping the villagers heal. She had broken Patricia's spell, but scars remained. One evening, as she prepared to leave for good, she visited the shrine one last time. The air inside was stale, lifeless. The symbols on the walls had faded. The place held no power anymore. She sighed, turning to leave. But just as she stepped outside, a cold wind brushed against her skin. And in the distance, barely audible, came a whisper. "This is not the end." Adiz froze. Her hands clenched. She refused to live in fear anymore. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, leaving the church behind. And as she walked away, the shadows inside the shrine shifted. Silent, patient, waiting.